definitely one of the most memorable for probably for everybody.
The United States has become the first country in the world to record more than 2,000 deaths associated with coronavirus in a single day.
Going through those 2 to 3 years of seeing that from the inside and out, no matter what actually you believe in, I was there in the thick of it. I actually saw the people who could barely breathe, can't even get up out of bed, get intubated right then and right there. And just wondering why and like the amount of people that was dying in a short amount of time.
Today, we have the honor of hosting Jeremy, who works as a licensed registered nurse, currently working in cardiovascular ICU. Jeremy, man, I got to know you, brother, over the years, man. I got to say it's an honor to interview, such a hardworking, reliable person like yourself, man. So thank you so much for taking your time, man, to speak with us and educate the masses, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
Of
Y'all like
course.
family, so I had to do it for you.
Hey, thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man. What got you interested in the medical field to begin with, and what ultimately made you decide you wanted to pursue your RN license?
Yeah, so I kind of had like an interesting story. So I always wanted to do medical field. After I figured out like being an athlete in college wasn't the realistic goal. The teacher at my high school actually inspired me to go into the medical field. I originally wanted to become a doctor or orthopedic surgeon, but I wanted stability as soon as I graduate was kind of one of the main things. Like it was very important to me. And nursing at the time was one of those jobs that had like instant stability as soon as you graduate. That actually decided to pursue nursing at that time. Actually fell in love with it within nursing school. So was definitely more rewarding as the more I did it.
How was nursing school for you? And do you feel as though it prepared you well for what you do now? Or is it?
Oh man. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, it's changed my life completely, honestly. The type of like as far as like meeting people, the experiences, a lot of people didn't get the experience where I come from for the things that I was doing at the University of Alabama. So I was very blessed to be able to just join nursing, and then it like inspired me to like see the world actually, because where I grew up we kind of like lived in a box and wasn't really experienced with a whole lot. So it definitely opened up a lot of doors for me for sure.
Do you feel like it prepared you, like now that you're actually doing the position, or do you feel like maybe the ground level experience of actually doing the job um, prepares you, or do you feel like you're better equipped for the job through experience, or did your time in nursing school really help you, when you're actually in the field?
I think, it lays the foundation, I think, nursing school. But as far as preparing me for the job and the day-to-day requirements that it take every day is definitely, it just comes with experience. It don't really show you the day-to-day grind that you have to do within the hospital to actually, take care of this patient, take care of the, be able to talk to the doctors a lot, and be able to cope with families and everything like that.
Was there ever a point in nursing school where you second guessed yourself, or maybe hit a point where you're like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, and what pushed you through that, if so?
Oh man, yes. It honestly one of the deepest part of my life. I actually, I don't really I haven't really shared this with a lot of people, but I actually didn't pass a class in nursing school. And it actually challenged me mentally and emotionally, if I can do this, if this is the right thing for me. But I definitely had a great support system. Friends that you also friends with also kind of helped me with that process, and then teachers kind of helped me to get back on the right track with that.
Was it the class specifically, or was there something like as far as the material that maybe had you thinking like, oh man, am I cut out for this? Or um, what would you
The
say was it?
Yeah, it was the material for sure. I was always naturally smart in high school, and it wasn't really like as far as not being able to study as much as I need to, and and not get laying down that groundwork until I hit that bump in the road.
Would you say it's a time management thing for most students that go through nursing school, or would you say it's more so of a focus thing?
I would say it's definitely a more of a time management thing. As
Okay.
far as the amount of material that's thrown at you at once, you have to plan that out. And also being a college student, also like adjusting to that life, having to study 8 hours a day, taking off the weekends that everybody's out and everything like that because our tests were on Monday. And so a lot of the football games I couldn't go to and everything like that because of the school. And it took a great amount of focus. It definitely prepared me for hard work and later on in life for sure.
How difficult was your licensing exam? Your exit exam, was it difficult? It took a lot of preparation, I'm sure.
hmm Yeah, it was definitely a lot. With any standardized test, it takes a lot of preparation for. And luckily my school had the groundwork to prepare you for that. As far as, what you need to know, how much time you need to put in, because at the end of the day, their numbers show too, of, like how many people pass and everything like that. So, they definitely laid the groundwork with that, but the test itself was definitely challenging for sure. But I definitely passed the first time, so I guess that's a good thing.
Nice. Congrats, man. Congrats. So, so you receive your license, you're starting your profession, what was your first few shifts like when you're starting off? Was there any awkward moments, any mistakes? How
Mhm.
was it when you first started off?
Very challenging because I was one of the few that was actually go direct into the ICU. And a lot of hospitals don't allow that program a lot. So I started out right at the ground at the top, so grinding it out. So it was definitely a huge transition for me as far as time management and planning and having that knowledge and that background to take care of the very, very high acuity patients. But it definitely helped me out a lot in the long run. But as far as starting out, was definitely a hard transition to get into.
How do most RNs start off if they're not thrusted into the ICU? What's the typical ladder look like?
You definitely start out more on either a med surge floor, which is takes any type of patients, as far as people who catch the flu or has GI issues, more of a general floor. And then you have a step down floor, which is the step down from the ICU, which is something that's like you can go into the ICU next right after. So it'd probably be the best time to like start in the step down unit and then get in the ICU to get that experience. But I kind of just jumped straight into it. That's what most nurses do to get experiences in the lower acuity floors first.
How do you feel like you said, that built you better? I mean, how do you feel like that accomplished that? Like you getting thrusted straight into the ICU. How do you feel like that made you better? I'm sure you had to face, things that the typical beginner doesn't have to face, right?
Like I said, it built me in a different way of I really didn't it took honestly about 2 years to even get used to it. So it wasn't just right off to even get to that point where, comfortability where, okay, if anything happened, I know how to handle it without, going to run to someone or ask a question about someone. So having that comfortability really takes a lot of time because everybody's different, everybody's built different. No matter if you have the same surgery as someone else, your body may react a different way. So you just never know. So it takes, honestly, any nurse can tell you, it probably takes about a year or two to even get your feet wet.
So starting off as like a new nurse, what's some of the most intimidating things that you have to overcome? Would you say if you had to pinpoint one thing? I'm sure there's a lot starting off, but you had to pinpoint something that most nurses would say is intimidating starting off. What would you say?
Starting out is definitely mostly communication, knowing how to talk to your peers, knowing your coworkers, knowing how to talk to the doctors. I think that was one of the most intimidating things, especially when you're round on a patient, you have to give the background of the patient. You have to give problems like, with the patient and how can we make this patient better. You're the actual like advocacy of that patient. So, you have to effectively communicate and doing that was very, very, very a hard transition on because they really don't teach you that, and that's one of the aspects. Really, they don't teach you that in nursing school. You have to just learn it on your own and with your job and with your preceptor. Mhm.
So that's interesting. Then, so what is that relationship like between an RN and RN and a doctor? In your experience, is there like a lot of tension, or does that like make a good relationship? You know, a doctor maybe being a little bit more open to what you guys have to say. What does that look like?
And so it's actually pretty hard, actually. It dep if you were the nurse back in 1990 or something like that, eh, doctors are a little bit harder to talk to, but, you know, now these days, a lot of young doctors that we have is a little bit more, open to nursing communication. I went to a teaching hospital, so a lot of it is they more lean on incorporating collaborations with different teams and everything like that, and being able to be more, understanding of our role and communicating in a very respectful way now these days. So
How
I
hard
think
is it?
that wasn't
Sorry about that.
awesome. So that wasn't really like a big issue for me because all the providers that I had was actually pretty cool, easy to talk to.
In your experience just with other RNs, then maybe just kind of through talking with them, how difficult is it to do your job when you have, you know, a doctor that is just hard nosed, maybe a know it all, whatever it may be, right? Is it yeah, just hearing from them, how hard is it for them to do their job?
It definitely, I mean, and it only affects you as a nurse, and also it also affects the patient and the care of that patient. Also, if it's the communication is just not that relationship between the doctors, it's just not there. Because there's certain things you might be timid of reporting back to the doctor because okay, he might respond in a different way than someone else or so I think, you know, as a nurse, you also have to just step up or talk to nurse management on how to be able to make that communication better for the advocacy to make your transition better as taking care of your nurse and also, you know, being able to relate to your peers also.
So from the other angle, again, as an RN dealing with patients, same question. I know you deal with all walks of life, just depending on, you know, the day of the week. How difficult in your experience is it dealing with patients? Are most pretty easygoing in your experience, or is it subjective? Obviously, depending on where you work, or how difficult is it working with some of the patients that you see on a day to day?
Oh man, everything's about demographics. Yeah, you know, if you work in the city more, you know, you're gonna get people who, you know, a lot of the trauma patients, you know, drug users who come in, you know, and dealing with those type of patients with mental issues or anything like that that's coming in to get to seek care. So some people built for that. Some people love that type of patient population. Then you know you got rural hospitals who people who don't get as much health care as much who just had something emergently done and have been taking care of themselves as long. And then you know where I work now is actually a place where you have to get elected for surgery. So people, you know, you have to have meet a certain type of criteria, you know, to even get surgery and everything like that. So I kind of work. I worked even as a travel nurse. I worked in different patient populations, but what I do now is kind of very different.
What's the difference, would you say, in your experience from, you know, being a travel nurse versus doing what you do now? I mean, is there different aspects that you enjoy more, or do you say for someone who's looking at potentially doing the travel nurse portion?
The travel nurse is definitely challenging. Thrown into the fire as soon as you get to the hospital. Basically, you have a lot to learn on the fly. But after a while, you get used to that. You know, as long as you establish the basis of being a nurse and knowing your background and being strong in that, you can actually adjust to different types of hospitals. But as far as referring to what I do now, is it's just more stability. As far as you know, being able to advance within my scope of practice, being able to join committees, be a part of management. It's definitely like the stepping stone of me deciding to be not to stop traveling because there's kind of a glass ceiling with the travel nursing and everything like that. You get paid more, but it's only you get the low acuity patients. You get like kind of just you know where help is needed, basically.
Right. As far as, you know, looking back in your career from when, you know, you started off in nursing school, um, to now where you're at and all the experience that you've gathered, um, do you feel like it's different than what you expected, or do you feel like everything is going pretty much how you envisioned it from nursing school?
Oh man, I think it's better than what I actually envisioned. I never thought that I'd be living in California, being able to have a stable, lifestyle, having that job stability where, I guess you only know what you're exposed to. So I wasn't really exposed to a lot growing up, besides travel basketball, and that was just around the southeast. But as far as like becoming taking care of your own responsibilities and being a man, actually, I think I'm a lot more than I actually imagined.
What's been your favorite part of the career field so far, and what's been your least favorite?
Best part is just the flexibility. If I wanted to, I can change a job concentration tomorrow if I wanted to and go into a different field of nursing. And just working 3 days a week is kind of the best thing. It's kind of a good thing also instead of five. And just in rewarding is just, being able to take care of people, at their worst. So it's just that aspect of just being rewarded in that way and just being able to provide and just having that responsibility just kind of it's one of the best parts to it. And one of the worst parts, it's just what I had to get used to is just the adaptability of people, their personalities, and a lot of people, just the emotional hardship it takes to actually take care of someone on my patient population. It's just you got to take care of your mind, you got to take care of your body because it's a lot.
Okay, so let's talk everyone's favorite subject, money. How much can someone starting off as a, certified licensed RN starting off make versus maybe a more experienced RN?
Yeah, so basically, it varies state by state as far as, it's the cost of living. A lot of nurses now or hospitals are trying to fight for wages for our nurses now, a lot better than it was, yeah, a few years back. But, as far as you start out, you have a tier. You start out as a CN1, CN2, and the highest is a CN3 before you go into management. And you do that by research base, you do that by years of service and a project also. So as far as starting out as a new grad in North Carolina, and it was on very low end as far as starting out from ranging from like 25 to 35 basically an hour in North Carolina. But as far as starting out in California, it's a lot more higher than that. So that's the reason why I'm out here in California because now that I got the experience, which is about 6 years now, I'm at a lot higher wage than I was starting out. So that's kind of how like the tier goes pretty much. You get raises every quarterly though. That my salary is probably almost 50% higher than
Wow.
in what I would
Wow.
make in other states. So
So is there certain things you can do as an RN to position yourself to make more money? Certain certifications, certain growth tracks that you can do to position yourself?
yeah, actually, yeah. Especially as a critical care nurse, you have the CCRN, which is the Critical Care Registered Nurse Certification Board. You also have projects you can do, CEUs, which is like a certain type of education hours that we have to have hourly, I mean yearly, is to maintain our status as in licensed RN. And you also have, in my field, you have the CMC and the CSC, which is cardiac surgical certification exam. Certain hospitals is different. You can get like a $500 raise reimbursement for paying for the test, which can cost up to like $500 to even take that test. And if you don't pass, you got to repay it. So,
Oof.
it's definitely perks going into taking that those certifications. I have my CCRN. I'm in the process of now taking the CSC, which is more into my field, which is more focus based within my field of practice.
So transitioning, in your experience, is there clear cut difference between an experienced RN who thrives and is doing well in the position versus someone who maybe experiences burnout and doesn't make it within the career field? What leads to that?
I think it's just honestly, I think it's honestly the newer generation. Even though the medical side of the hospital and the research actually advanced, I think still as far as the work ethic and the amount of emotional stress that it causes a lot of high turnover. And a lot of people actually in our age are actually advancing our career field, which is becoming CRNAs, becoming nurse practitioners. So they are not really They only be about a registered nurse for about a few years before they actually go back to school to get their master's or their doctorate.
Wow. So would you say that there's a certain type of person, whether it be lifestyle, personality based, that you would say typically, burns out more? Or would you say that there's maybe even a certain personality that you wouldn't recommend get into nursing?
No, it's definitely it's not built for everybody for sure. If you're joining it just for the stability and the actual like money of it aspect, as far especially out living out here, I don't think you really would make it that far. And actually being prepared to even, especially in the ICU, to take on that knowledge base that you have to have in taking the time off, going home and studying and actually learning about the patient population, what type of patients that you take. And you have to have a passion to be able to want to do that. So they can let you go just like that if you're not keeping up with the flow of our workspace and management and everything. We get our yearly review every year, and if you're not meeting a certain quota and making med errors, main thing these hospitals really care about is patient safety, especially to the ones that I've been to. So if you're not maintaining that patient safety, it can be a hard challenge, and a lot of people actually change their careers when they get into nursing because you actually don't see the nitty gritty of everything until you actually get into your job aspect of it.
What's been the craziest or most memorable specific story that you've had since you've been a registered nurse?
To me, it's not the most, I shouldn't say positive, I guess. I stated back to COVID, going through those 2 to 3 years of seeing that from the inside and out, no matter what actually you believe in, I was there in the thick of it. I actually saw the people who could barely breathe, can't even get up out of bed, get intubated right then and right there. And just wondering why and like the amount of people that was dying in a short amount of time was definitely one of the most memorable probably for everybody who was a nurse around that time of how it affected me and other people around me. As far as the way I looked at it, I'm a generally healthy guy, but a person who don't work in career field, maybe have a cousin who just got a fever and just lost a taste, and it's like, oh, it don't really affect people that bad. But I actually saw the people who could barely breathe, can't even get up out of bed. Those were the people who we were trying to protect, and I didn't want to spread it to my grandmother or anybody who has a weaker immune system, no matter how healthy I think I am, because that interesting thing, you just never know how it was going to affect other people.
Right. I mean, you're experiencing it for the first time like everyone else, so you don't know the capability of it, and yet you still have to be a professional at the end of the day. And yeah, I hear so many horror stories from that time frame, man. So
Yeah.
definitely thank you for what you do.
Yeah, I
Uh,
appreciate it.
so if somebody is watching this and wants to do exactly what you're doing, what advice would you give them?
Advice is just, stick with it. It's hard work but it's very rewarding, I should say. And being able to help someone at their lowest, someone who really can't take care of themselves, and you being that lending hand because you're the actual forefront of that person. Like I said, the doctors come and go, but you're actually that person or that caretaker. If that's your passion of helping people and it is your passion to do whatever you can to make that person better, I think that career field is for you. Advice is just put the work in. Don't get stagnant, and it might have some bad days, a lot of bad days, but there are also some good days. And so as long as you stick with it, and like I said, being able to emotionally separate from that whenever it's time to turn off that clock is most important also. Questions about nursing or how to be able to effectively, work at a high level, especially with me being in the most critical floors. People who are ready for that, I definitely have the information for that.
Enjoyed the content? Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you have a career in mind you would like us to spotlight, send us a message on Instagram. We're always listening. Until next time, it's time to clock out.